Welcome to another episode of the We Grow Together podcast. We are geeking out today. If you are ready to join the mayhem that is Fourth Wing, Iron Flame, and now Onyx Storm, welcome to the show. I'm Laura DiFrancesco, your host. Today we are going on a romantasy, geek out, enjoy yourself moment. I love to read. I'm a voracious reader. We have our book club episodes. If you'd like my seasonal recommendations, we cover everything from poetry and classics to romantasy. And if you're into equestrian reads, those as well as business and personal development. So we go all over the place. But I have to say, I have a really soft spot in my heart for a good romantasy. And this definitely hits the spot. If you haven't read Fourth Wing and Iron Flame, of course, do so. This is going to include spoilers for all of the series, plus Onyx Storm itself. We're going to be doing a fun little style here where I'm going to start off the episode before going into my theories and some ideas of where I think the plot will go. And then I'm going to also pause in the middle at various points to also talk about like where it is, where I think it's going, and we will see. You can also read along with me. So if you want to pause at certain points, I'll tell you like what we're up to and everything like that. So you can pause and read along with me. But I don't know that I'm going to get anything right. I just will say I can guess a lot of things a lot of the time. So if you don't want someone in your head that's going to be like, oh, I feel like this thing's going to happen, skip this until you've actually read it. But I hope that we can enjoy and geek out on this together. If you enjoy, be sure to subscribe, share with your friends who are also geeking out about romantasy reads. Tell me your favorite romantasy reads in the comments. Be sure to follow us on social media at Laura M. DiFrancesco. Subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. We're also on YouTube. You can also connect with us on social media at Flourish Westchester. And be sure to leave us a 5-star review. That is one of the biggest, best comments you can give to support our show and to support our small businesses. So with that said, let's get into the theories. I feel like there's been a couple of big theories going into this. I will say I have listened to 2 theories episodes to hear other people's theories. There are theories that I think other people have and that I have, and then there's theories that I have never heard of anyone having. So let's discuss it. And I think this is so appropriate, being nice in front of the fire. And I have to say, one of my favorite things about Fourth Wing and this whole Empyrean series is just the animals and the fact that they're in their head and talking to their animals, because as someone with 25 animals myself, with horses, dogs, cats, mini donkeys, goats, ducks, chickens, all of the above, it makes my heart so happy how big of a role that the dragons have in this entire thing. It's one of my favorites. And then, of course, Xaden Ryerson is second to none. Chef's kiss, main male character, supporting his female character. I think that sometimes, like in book 1, it was a little bit slow at times because there was a lot of telling and not showing and just background dumping through facts as she was getting through stressful situations. That didn't bother me too much. In book 2, the girl on girl drama drove me absolutely nuts. I couldn't stand it. So my hopes getting into book 3 are that it is going to be adventure based, fun with the dragons, romantasy spice with Xaden. I hope there's some good character arcs. I hope we are so far behind the girl drama from book 2. I can't deal. I don't want any of that. So that's kind of my hope going into this 3rd book. I love the world. I love the storytelling. I love her pacing. I love that she uses this W type of story structure. So I think it's going to be W for the whole series. And I think it's also, each book is a W too. So I really love her writing style. I think Rebecca Yarros just is phenomenal. I just would leave all of the girl drama as an unnecessary part of anything. I think the other part that I am really hoping for in the girl drama-esque situation is I can't be friends with someone who would ever do that to me. I'm not going to spoil it too much, but I could never be friends with someone. And it's really hard for me to read big books if I don't agree with the main character's decisions. And I know we tried to resolve that in book 2, but I hold a grudge, okay? I hold a grudge against Kitty Cat, and it's just not going anywhere. So I will cringe every single time her name is brought up. I do think where we left off for Iron Flame being right after the battle and then with Xaden after he had turned Venin, I think that a lot of this book will be about exploring the Venin world and more about them, building allies, restructuring the War College, because with her mama Sorrengail passing away, there will obviously be some restructuring. I know that in a couple of the series episodes, they've talked about allies and where they think they're going and think they're going abroad. I would have to agree. A couple of the big theories that are out there are a few things about her second signet, which I do think that her second signet is that she's intrinsic. So signets are the blend of the dragon's power and the blend of the rider's power, and it's something unique to them and that they need. So I do think that she's an intrinsic because she's been mind to mind with Xaden, including it tends to happen in their spicy scenes. And she's been mind to mind with Xaden a few times and been like, have you ever done this with you? Has this, etc. And they're like shocked by it, right? I think that was it. With that said, I do think that there is a great possibility because of who Andarna is, that is actually something that shifts and she can just take on someone else's ability. I'd be really curious about that. I thought we kind of saw it with fixing the ward stone and her and Mira. So I'm curious as to what it is, but I think it's definitely one of those two. The theory that I've never heard anybody say is I think Mama Sorrengail, General Sorrengail, was Venin. In book 1, I did a little reread of Fourth Wing, and there's this half a sentence where she says that when she came back from battle, her mom's eyes were so blood red, and she had been reading those mythical creature books / not mythical creature, but actually real books with her dad. And she was so afraid that her mom was Venin. She screamed that she was Venin, and her mom took away all of her books. So I do think that she is Venin. I do think that because long before Jack was deemed Venin, he already showed signs in book 1 of having these light red in his eyes. So I'm super curious about that. Before I'd done my reread, I did think that it was going to be Papa Sorrengail that was Venin. I still have not abandoned this theory, but I think the better theory is that Mama Sorrengail is Venin. I do think General Atos is pure evil, and I think he's in line with the Venin. I think one of the biggest things that hasn't been really explained thus far to my satisfaction is it doesn't really make sense. I get the control, but it doesn't really make sense why they would hide that there's Venin outside of the walls when they're losing so badly. And yes, it can be forgotten in a generation, and her dad warned her of that. But why are they hiding the Venin? I think there's more to it. I think that there's reasons why they're hiding the Venin, not just because they don't want they think that they're protected and they don't want Navarians to know about it. I think there's more nuances about it. I think we're going to learn a lot more about the Venin culture. I actually think it's going to be a mirror of the Biscayeth and Rider culture, because I think what we saw from the fairy tales is that there's three brothers. One channels from the earth, one channels from the dragons, and one channels from the griffins. And there was this huge prejudice against the griffin riders because they thought that they had this whole beef against them. And do they help Paramil? Do they help the outsiders? I think there is the exact same struggle of good and evil and people doing the right thing and people doing the wrong thing and people being misunderstood on the Venin side of things as well. I would be shocked if there wasn't an equivalent of General Atos and his evilness and what's his name, Valish or whatever his name is, Vapish, I forget his name, basically the guy who tortured her in book 2. I think there are those same people on the Venin side. I'm curious if the general sage who is trying to get Violet and Xaden over to their side may or may not be doing it to weaponize them or to get them to understand. Maybe because they see them being the first people who could do it together. I think there is a cure. They've been looking for a cure for a long time. They haven't found the cure. They know that Andarna is the 7th type of dragon. I think there's a solution around all of this that isn't violence, because just the way I think about things, that's the way it's got to be, right? It's got to have a happy ending. It may not get there in this book. It may not get there in the next book, but my perception is that there is a cure. There is going to be a lot of black and white and gray on all sides. There's going to be evil people on all sides. I do think that there is some alignment, or I don't know if it's a treaty, but there's some unspoken, unshown reason why ultimately, basically, Navarre has been helping the Venin. You don't, like, it's not obvious per se, but they have. They're like not actually fighting the Venin. And if you're not fighting something, you're basically helping it. And I think there's a reason behind that. I'm so curious to figure out what that reason is. Andarna, we love her. I can't wait to see more of her. So Andarna, to me, is going to be such a fun part of this next book. Her and Taryn and using the second signet and exploring her history and exploring who she is and whether there's more of her. I'm sure there are. I'm excited for more library adventures. I'm sure there will be more of that. I'm excited for more on the mat fight scenes with Xaden. I hope there will be more of that. Yeah, I think it's going to be a really exciting book. What other theories have I not touched on? Have I told you that I think Papa Sorrengail is also Venin? I think he was researching what Venin are, what the cures are, what the mythological stories are, because Mama Sorrengail is Venin. Originally thought it was because he is Venin. I'm not sure if he's dead. I would not be surprised if he's not dead and if he's Venin. I do think Mama Sorrengail died, for sure, on page. That's definite. But I don't think that Papa Sorrengail died. It just wasn't shown enough. It just didn't seem final enough. I just don't believe he's dead. I do think he's Venin. I think he's high up in Venin. I think he went away because he could no longer control it, but I don't know that for sure. I definitely think that he was researching it because one of them were Venin. Oh, I forgot to tell you. I think that Violet has silver hair because she's half Venin. I think she was born half Venin because either Mama Sorrengail became Venin when she channeled to fix something because the birth was really not going well in her pregnancy, or I think that Papa Sorrengail or Mama Sorrengail were Venin before the pregnancy. but after the other kids. So after Mira and after Brennan. At some point, one of the two of them was Venin, and she was born half Venin. And I think the person that she sees with the silver hair was also born half Venin. I don't know that though, but I think that Violet Sorrengail is half Venin. I think you got to think about why she's the chosen one. And yes, she's the chosen one because she's the female main character. I think she's also the chosen one because she's born half Venin and she can see in both worlds of light and dark. I think there's going to be a lot of this light and dark thing, either her and Xaden. It's all on the cover with the Onyx Storm and everything. And I think Onyx is related to Xaden because I think she always talks about him being like this Onyx power, his shadows. But on the cover, there's a lot of light and dark elements. And I think it's going to be her and him and balancing them out and him struggling with being Venin and her being his light. And I'm curious to figure out how we're going to repair his soul. So part of his soul is damaged because he's Venin. So how can a soul be repaired? I think it's through love and acceptance of yourself. And he took from the earth. I wonder if he has to give to the earth somehow. I'm so curious about that. I think it'll be very interesting. Definitely things that they'll go into the libraries for. Definitely things that they'll figure out with the dragons. There's also been a lot that we haven't known about dragon culture. They've always kept saying that dragons do what they want. They don't answer to humans. They have their own politics. I'm so curious. I think that there's more that the dragons are doing to fight this war, to secure themselves. I'm very excited. So I think that's the majority of my ideas. I'm sure more of them will come to me as I go into it. I talked about our second signet, talked about theme and plot. A lot of people say who's going to die in this book. Someone's going to die in this book. I never like to predict that. That's not really my thing. I think that's it. I think that's it for my theories for now. Let's go into our first discussion of where we are in the book. So I will check in with where we are. I will tell you where to pause if you're not there yet. And then I'll give you all my theories and ideas of where we are. One of my favorite places on earth is Ethereal Farms in the rolling hills and draping forests of Chester County wine country. It's right next door to our sister farm, Wayvine Winery and Vineyard, so guests of our luxury accommodations can enjoy wine visits, enjoy live music and food trucks at the winery. Our luxury accommodations and tranquil landscapes provide the perfect escape from the hustle and bustle of everyday life. There's also access to over 1,000 acres of hiking. Enjoy serene walks among meadows, cozy nights by the fire making s'mores, and unforgettable moments with our friendly farm animals. Everything from horses to goats, mini donkeys, which are the absolute cutest, ducks, chickens, turkeys, we've got it all. So if you're looking for a getaway with your friends, family, significant other, be sure to check out Ethereal Farms. Follow us on social media at Ethereal Farms to get all the cute farm content, and be sure to book your stay so you can enjoy a little bit of the magic here in Chester County. I cannot believe we've started on Onyx Storm. This is going to go over chapters 1 through 11. So if you have not read those yet and don't want to hear all of my theories for the rest of the book, pause here, stop here, don't continue, don't pass go. But if you're ready, grab your leathers, let's ride. I'm so excited. So there's a lot going on to unpack here. I'm going to briefly go through, I think, the biggest things, which is their dragon dynamics. Sorrengail and Tarn are so upset with Xaden, aren't talking to Xaden, but then Andarna, which is the 7th dragon, the rarest, that has the power to burn the venin, is on a quest at no costs, no stone unturned, to find out how to save Xaden. So I think it's really interesting. I think there's a lot to the dragon dynamics, especially with we find that Garrick's dragon is blocking out the riot. The dragons haven't been selecting riders for a long time. I don't think that the dragons agree with the Navarre principle of how they're handling things. And I don't think that they're finding people worthy to bond with. I wonder if that's because there's Venin throughout the Navarrian leadership, and that's part of the reason. I'm curious if that is. I think the dragons are building their own army. I think it's interesting that they can communicate with the flyers. Do we think that they can communicate with the Venin? And also, if there is a rider that turns Venin that has a dragon, does that hurt the dragon? Does that corrupt their soul too? And are wyvern originally some of them actually dragons that turned wyvern? I'm so curious about that. I feel like there's so much there. In addition, I don't think that the weather is just because General Sorrengail's not there. I think the Venin are playing a part of that too. And I feel like there's a lot more to it. The scenarium, I love it. I feel like the peace talks could have been so much better negotiated. They just needed me on their team to be a better negotiator. But I loved how Violet took it into her own hands and just decided to be a traitor and be held for treason and change the wards. I thought that was really one of my favorite moments in the entire first 11 chapters. And then Andarna has special powers and can hurt the Venin or burn them when she changes scales. So I also think that not only does Violet have 2 signets, I think she might actually have 3. Or I think that her power changes when Andarna changes. I think there's going to be so much more to that than just her having 2 signets. I think the special changes that Andarna has is going to be able to ripple effect to Violet as well. And I also think that this whole power dynamic in Navarre is not just about protecting them from Venin and not wanting people to know that this evil is out there. They're burning personal effects. They want people to forget lost languages. They're controlling what's in the archives and what people have access to. They are killing people who know, like the Tirish Rebellion. I think there's so much more to it than just that. I think that they don't want people to be more powerful, or maybe they're actually working in support of the Venin. I'm not entirely sure. I do think that King, whatever his name is kind of like a figurehead and not actually doing anything. I think that's why his sons are becoming riders and wanting to be more involved, because they don't want to be just this puppet. But I think it'll be really interesting. I think even though they're talking with the scenario about the group of people that are going to go on this expedition, it has to be the squad. That's like Harry going on an expedition without Ron and Hermione. It has to be the squad. We might have Halden come in there. I think that Halden and Violet did have a prior romance. I hope that that doesn't become what this cat thing has been, because that's been so horrible. I can't believe that it's in this book too. I need it to go away ASAP. I hope it's not going to be that bad. I hope it's going to be just like a paragraph. I do think it's going to make Xaden jealous. They talk about the concurrent powers and the 6. I do think there is maybe the 7, right? So you had the 6, quote unquote, but that's because they avoided talking about the Irid and the rider related to that. Maybe that rider was also half Venin or full Venin or something like that. So I think it's really interesting how they talk about the concurrent powers of the 6. I think we're going to see that, both Xaden and Violet having those 2 powers never having been done concurrently since the Great War. I think we're going to find all 6 crop up, and I think we're also going to find the complementary 6 or 7 in the Venin. And I wonder if like all of them coming together is what's needed to heal everybody and save everybody. I feel like that would be really cool. Love the knife throwing, just so much fun. And then I think there's a lot more Venin in the scribes. I wonder if that's how Papa Sorrengail, if he was Venin, how he was able to be Venin for so long because he was a scribe. And I think there's a lot more Venin in overall the hierarchy. Like, I think that General Atos, if he's not Venin, he's bowing down to them in exchange for power or something. And I think that there was a misdirection when the Venin said, we need her. And she says, oh, because they need me to control Xaden. No, I think they need her specifically. And I think they got Xaden to get to her. That's kind of what I'm thinking. And I wouldn't be surprised if she turns Venin. She may not stay Venin, but I wouldn't be surprised if she turns Venin. I think she's for sure an intrinsic. She's sharing memories with Xaden during their spicy times. I think she is 100% an intrinsic, but I also think she has a third signet or some sort of variation, maybe amplification, maybe something like that. And then I think we're going to do some sort of focus on Auratia's wards and getting those secured. And I think it's really interesting how they, in addition, they don't want in Navarre anybody to learn runes, and runes control wards. And I think they could also be a part of how they need to heal everything with everybody. I think that the runes and the lost languages are, and the 7 on each side are all part of this like little recipe that we're building to save the world, basically. Loving in chapter 6 that Violet stood up as a leader and loved Devara. I thought it was really interesting that they talked about the sword and it being needed to be kept safe even from Xaden. I think that there may be something there with the sword being a key to a couple other things, whether it has power or it has runes or something. Maybe it can power the ward stone. Maybe it can be a conduit. I think we're going to learn more about that sword. We love a moment where Xaden is a duke. Hopefully, I think we can all expect that Violet's going to become a duchess. I'm wondering if they're going to ascend to queen or gods or something like that. I feel like the gods have not played a role too much yet. I think they will over time. So I'm curious to see what that would be. Love the high treason. Love that they're changing the wards. That's one of my favorite moments in the entire first 11 chapters so far. And then Queen Mariah is fierce, amazing. Love that she gives her unfettered access to her library, which is in her summer house. And I wonder if her summer house is near the islands where Andarna's people might be. So I think we're going to have some library adventures there using her lost languages, using runes, maybe even using that sword. I'm curious to see where that goes. I think they're going to find some good stuff in there. I remember that when she goes to Samara and they have the nightmare and everything, and she's searching for a painting and books and everything. I think those have some hidden elements in it where she needs to go revisit those things and go find her dad's journals and go get all of that information to continue on her journey. And then chapter 10 brings us to this silver-haired Venin whose name is Theophany, and she reminds her of the Duchess, which I'm wondering if they're related or if she and Violet are related or if they're the mirror image of one another. I feel like they talk about balance in nature a lot. So I'm curious as to say when she says that their lives are so intertwined, what that exactly means. I feel like they must have met before. Maybe that's the reason why Violet has the silver hair, or maybe the silver hair comes from the fact that they're lightning wielders. I don't know. We find out that Andara is an Irid, and her question was who bonded first. So clearly Andarna bonded before Terran, and I think that's important because the reason why Andarna finally hatched was because of Violet, and I think it's because Violet is either half Venin or she thinks she's the key to bringing everything together. Maybe she's the 7th, just like the 6 had a 7th too. And then we find out that Garrick is a walker, and I think that's going to take them on their adventures. I feel like we need to power Garrick up, maybe through the sword, maybe through her power as an amplifier, as her third signet. Who knows? Put a little gas on that pedal. I don't know. And then I'm unsurprised that Venin have signets. I feel like every rider that becomes Venin has a signet. That would make sense because Xaden has his signets still. I wonder though what happens to their dragons. Do they become wyvern? What happens? And then chapter 11, we found out that it was a trap. She's a prey and a prize. So why is she so rare? Why did they all flee? Why did they leave Andarna behind? I feel like that's going to be a huge part of it all. And then they talk about mortal memory versus immortal memory. So I kind of think of Venin as a vampire almost, and it's something where you are immortal. I do think that Violet is going to become a Venin too, but I think she's going to do it in a way that's good. I'm hoping, but I wouldn't be surprised if she becomes Venin too. I feel like we're going there. We have to go there. And then Atos moves into the former apartments. I'm wondering where all of General Sorrengail's things went. And then we have less dragons that are bonding. I think it's because they don't agree. I think there's so much there. There's so much more to talk about, but I want to leave it till our next section. We're going to be reading chapters 12 to ... I'll let you know as soon as I finish it. And I will see you in the next section. Woohoo! We are at chapters 12 through 22. If you haven't gotten that far, pause this, read up, listen up, and we're going to dive into what we have coming up with chapters 12 through 22. So much has happened. So many thoughts. Alrighty. So I think one of the most interesting things that have happened so far is that Xaden is struggling, of course, with this addiction, this pull of the magic coming from the earth and the magic wanting him to use it, this sort of almost persuasion that the magic has, influence that the magic has, which is really interesting. There was an interview with Jack where there was a few things learned about the Venin, that as Venin, you trade autonomy for unfettered access to power, how they advance based on talents. There's no cure, and they don't wish to be cured. And then also Jack calls the dragons villains and says that basically you would never know who's Venin and you would never know if you were surrounded by them. So, of course, who's been channeling from Best Guy? I do think that Atos is at the very least in line with the Venin, if not Venin himself. But overall, I think there's a lot of people who are playing both sides and trying to get in the way. I think that the king and Holden are trying to get in the way with sending out that first group to that village to get back the necklace and everything. Before we get there, so they went on this mission, right? And I think that it was doomed from the beginning purposefully. I think that the Venin knew they were going. I think that Holden and the king and Takaris and Queen Mariah are all in this together and working with the Venin. I think Queen Mariah particularly is like the surprise that you wouldn't expect because she comes in wanting to help. But I think that it's a fake wanting to help. Maybe I'm wrong. I would say that it's definitely Takaris and the king working with the Venin, but I would not be surprised if Queen Mariah was working with the Venin or all Venin themselves. Who knows? I think it's super interesting that Takaris's castle and everything is built so that it's basically nothing to the Venin. So to me, that communicates that he has no fear of them and no fear that they're going to take over, which means that he either has an alliance with them or he is one. It's interesting to me that both him and Queen Mariah have homes, these summer homes, and seem to have access to the Isles. And then in the Isles, there is no magic. But I don't believe that there's no magic because there's no magic. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think that they have wards there because clearly the dragons are really surprised. Communications are cut off. All forms of magic are cut off. But except the communication from Tarn and from Violet together. And why is that? Possibly because of Andarna, or possibly because she's the silver one. And she's either half Venin or half something else related to the Venin. I don't know exactly what that is, but I think there's going to be a lot of exploration there. I just think that it's weird to me that Takaris has this land in these Forbidden Isles that Navarre wouldn't ever talk about, and that everybody thinks that the dragons are evil, despite that there are dragons on these islands, presumably if Andarna's family's there as well. I feel like it's going to be a really interesting question as to whether runes work there. I feel like runes will work there. And since runes are part of the equation for creating wards, I think the whole reason no one's magic works, just like the magic of the flyers didn't work in Navarre, is because there's wards here that prevent any magic, which also prevents the Venin. And perhaps those same wards are in Takaris's palace, but magic works there. I'm curious to figure out how we unwind this question, but I think one of the biggest questions is, why is there no magic there? Is it wards, or is there something else about Navarre that means there's magic? I personally think there's something fishy going around in the islands. So they don't want in Navarre anyone to know about these islands. They weren't even on the map. Perhaps because they fear losing power, losing magic, someone knowing how to create these wards like they've created there. Presumably they'd be powerful in an area with dragons, whether or not there was magic, because dragons can do a lot of damage in and of themselves. So I think it's very strange that Navarre would hide these from anybody. Clearly they have knowledge, they have information, they have language that is forgotten that most people don't know. I'm fascinated by all of this. Going back a second, I thought one of my favorite parts of this was Xaden's class with signet sparring. I totally called it that Holden was a former relationship, former ex of Violet's. Not surprised at all that there's a little bit of jealousy that Xaden has. I feel like it's been humorous, it's been fun, it's not been as annoying, but I'm glad that they put it on text. Oh, was I this annoying with Kat? Yes, it is that annoying, but it continues to go on. Who knows why they continue with that storyline of Kat and the relationship and dynamic and everything. I thought it was interesting in sparring class that we find out that Violet's the only one who can kill Xaden. And I wonder if that's part of the reason why everybody wants her. I think it's really weird that Takaris wants Violet, and I don't think it's because of her lightning signet. I think it's because she's half and half, whatever she is half of, whether it's Venin or not. And then I thought that, so we finally got into Papa Sorrengail's research, which was, to me, shockingly easy to get. First, I'm like, why would you leave the research? You got all of your mom's journals, but you didn't get your dad's research after you also it was so easy to get. I thought if they weren't looking for it to figure out more about the Feathertails and the first six, like, why wouldn't they look at our dad's research that went into all of these things when they were trying to figure out about the wards and everything like that in book 2? I don't understand why they didn't try to find it sooner. That doesn't make sense to me. But it was shockingly easy to get access to. Dane proved that he was loyal and everything and got it. I find it fascinating that the first things he says is that history is a collection of stories and it's influenced by the people who share those stories. I'm wondering if I feel like there's a perception that a reader would trust his research as being truth. Yes, he's saying he's only given her half the lessons, half the history, half the truth, and that his death will fail her, and to only trust Mira. I'm wondering if he knew that Brennan was dead or not. He says only trust Mira. Would he have said trust Mira and Brennan? I have a hard time believing that no one else knew that Brennan was alive. Like, I wonder if they disagreed with each other. I think that Brennan's good. I think he's going to take care of his sister. I just feel like there's more to this family dynamic, and I especially feel like there's more between Papa Sorrengail and Mama Sorrengail. I think one of them was Venin. I'm like almost certain it was Mama Sorrengail. And then he's saying, like, if you need this information, it's because you need to kill your enemy. And is that enemy the people at Navarre, or is it the Venin? And if it's the Venin, does that mean that he didn't know that Mama Sorrengail was Venin? Because it sounds like it's the Venin because he's like the things of nightmares. Does that mean he didn't know that Mama Sorrengail was Venin? Did she think that he would not like it because of the research that he was doing? Could she possibly keep that from him? I feel like she could keep that from him. You would think he'd be doing research about Venin, though. If she was Venin, you'd think he would know. And she is his true love. I feel like he would have had to know. Maybe he's talking about the bad Venin. I don't know. Maybe it was just writing and it didn't mean anything. Totally could be that too. But I don't think that his history lessons are quite going to be the truth that we think they are. I think there's going to be a lot of layers to this story that are going to unfold over time. And then obviously when they went there, the letter from Theophany, when they were finding this, was a total setup, I think, from the king and also from whatever his name is, Takaris. And then Mira and Drake was a funny moment as well. I think their relationship's going to be interesting and enjoyable and fun to watch. Riddick is coming out swinging, saying that he can freeze people's water inside them. I wonder how that would be. Well, I mean, I think that could help with the Venin because clearly they still have water inside them. They're still humans. Xaden is still a human. So I feel like that's going to be really interesting. Takaris told them when they're going over to the islands to give him a 12-hour head start with Halden. I think they're clearly working together. And I think that the King of Corden is also going to be working with them. I also think that Xaden's rank and being nobility is going to help them have their own conversation with the King of Corden. But I think that the King of Corden is evil and working with the King of Navarre, even though they pretend that it doesn't exist. And I think that Takaris is in on this and he's getting like payment from all of this. I think it's going to be really interesting to see what these bookstores in the marketplace come up with. There's a lot of secrets here, and I think they're going to learn a lot of information, but I think they're going to have to start to sift through it and figure out whose information is actual truth and start to stop listening to what's in the storybooks and stop listening to what other people say and start listening to their own opinions and making their own judgment calls. I think that's going to be one of the biggest issues within the whole work that they've been doing is who to trust, whose word to trust, and is it even her dad's? Was he even correct? Maybe, maybe not. I'm curious to see where this research comes from. And then we talked about the wards and the runes in these island kingdoms. I think it's amazing that Xaden feels at home because it's relaxed. Clearly they could live there if they wanted to. But is this place as good as we think it is? It's just because it's a place where Andarna's dragons have gone. And why did they all go there? So many questions. Okay, let's keep reading. I think I'm going to just do 11 chapter intervals, but I will let you know before the next grouping where I stop again. But oh my goodness, so many good questions here. I'm loving this book so far. I think it's so much fun. I hope you're enjoying the book too. Mali, hello Mali, you want to say hi? You want to say hi, Miss Mali? Oh. Say hi. Hello, hello, hello. Okay, back to reading. We'll see you in the next session. The number one question I'm asked is, how do I do all the things I do? So I put this into a course, a workbook, and a workshop where you can find all the little details about how I do this on a daily basis. And I've called it the Wild Ambition Lifestyle Design Course, Workbook, and Workshop. Transform your dreams into reality with guided vision setting, storyboarding, journaling, and all the tools I use to bring my dreams to life with over 100 lessons, 200 plus pages of workbooks, and lifetime access so you can return to it whenever you need to. The course itself is that iterative process of how we continue to evolve over time to be the best version of ourselves. If you are an ambitious individual, if you want to make your dreams come true, I think you'll really love Wild Ambition, and I encourage you to check it out in the show notes. Start your journey today. Enroll now to dream and live with Wild Ambition. This is going over chapters 23 through 33. If you haven't read yet here, pause and continue later or listen to this all at the end. We have so much to unpack, going through the Isles, going on adventures, finding the books from Dad, meeting Xaden's mom, so much to go over. So where do we want to start? Let's start from the beginning for this one. I feel like I have so many reactions. I need to kind of go through them in more chronological order. So first we go to the bookshop, and I think there was a lot of things here that make a lot of sense. First, it was the books for Violet only, and they were in the Isles. They could have been anywhere, so why put them in the Isles? Because I think it's clear that there's a lot that Violet has to learn from the Isles, including her heritage. And so that was one piece. The other thing was the age of the priestess and how she seems perhaps immortal. And the priestess has the same tattoos and the same silver hair as Theophany. That's another thing. Let's get there in a minute. Oh my gosh, we have so much to talk about. So there's 6 books from Dad. I find it interesting the number 6 when there's 6 riders, and then there's this one that's always off to the end. And you have to think, did that 7th rider choose to leave? Did that 7th dragon choose to leave? Did they disagree with everything? Were they cut off? I don't think it was just that they were cut out of the history to make it so that people couldn't rebuild wards. I think that they were cut out of the history perhaps because people don't want them to know about them. And if that's because they left or they were forced to leave, there's a lot to unpack there. I feel like they either chose or they were forced to leave, but I feel like they might have chosen to leave. We have so many politics and so many people, and I imagine this has been this way for a long time. So what if somebody, maybe that rider, maybe that dragon, decided that's not the way that they want to continue carrying on? So there was also this phrase around before he left, meaning that I don't think that her dad died. I think he left. And there's also a lot of things in these books that he would have had to have a very long time to understand and know. So how long was he in the Isles? Did he grow up there? Maybe he grew up there. Maybe her silver hair is coming from his heritage. Maybe Violet isn't even Papa Sorrengail and Mama Sorrengail's child. Maybe they adopted her in the Isles and brought her there. I don't know. And then the other thing I was thinking about was maybe he's immortal. And it seems like a lot of the Venin are from the Isles, particularly from where Theophany, I think, is from, which is Dune. I think that's Dune, where a lot of them are from. And so we're going to go on this whole little adventure in the Isles, and there's a lot we're going to find. So in chapter 25, it started with marriage is a necessary evil to secure his line. So I had a feeling that we were going to be getting more on Xaden's mom because of that line and Fen Ryerson. And why was Fen Ryerson trying to align with the Isles? And how did, I think, having his mom be from the Isles secure the line? Maybe he was thinking that they have a much higher likelihood of survival or power or something like that than people from Navarre. I'm curious about that because you think the rebels, all of them, the dragons really bond to really well. I wonder if part of it is having either the power from the Isles or the political influence or some secret sauce there. There's something there about securing the line and his mom. And obviously we meet his mom at the end of chapter 33, which is wild. So when they were on the first isle, Umbriel, I think it was so clear what I called that the King, Corden, and Halden and Takaris were all aligned. They've been doing business together for centuries and they've been going behind their back. I think we're going to find a lot more about that. And clearly, King Corden has been dealing to support Navarre, but support Navarre in what? Because I don't think it's necessarily their fight against Venin, because King Corden didn't seem to care whatsoever about Venin. They said, oh, what do you think? We're unprepared for that. So it seems like King Corden has a way that he's protecting the island from the Venin. I think that's words personally, but maybe I'm wrong. I think that they have the strongest words that aren't faltering and they know how to keep them up. But that would have meant, I think that they would have needed the riders and dragons to start those wars, but there haven't been dragons there in a long time. And they seem prepared with those, but they only fear Venin or dragons from that one direction, which is north, which is the continent, which is interesting because we have clearly people from the other islands, particularly Dune, it seems like, having a number of Venin, because we've seen a number of Venin with these tattoos on their forehead. And then we, of course, see Theophany, who has her silver hair. So Dune particularly seems very good at fighting and ready for attacks at all angles. And I don't look at the map ever because I'm listening to the audiobook. Maybe they have a different place in the island configuration that they have more of a risk, even though they're more south than the other isles. Why is Dune particularly being targeted by the Venin? Or are they knowingly supporting the Venin? Because it seems like when they had this god, they were talking about which god do you support. It was, she said him, either Xaden or Tern, and then she saw the flash of gold eyes behind the gods. And I think the gods and goddesses are actual people-ish, immortals, if you want to say. I think they are living, breathing, walking, and kind of orchestrating this whole thing. Or maybe it was just, maybe it really was Andarna that she saw the flash of, because I guess Andarna did come back. But I still think that the gods are continuing to play more of a role, and which god does which person follow and celebrate and pray to and worship. And I think it's foreshadowing that Xaden is going to become a god or going to become immortal or something to that nature. And I think so is Violet, because Violet has been the only person who's been able to use magic. I think it's Andarna's magic that she's using unknowingly, and I think she's able to use her same signets with Tern with Andarna, because I think she has multiple signets with Andarna. I think she can use Andarna's power however she wants. And so we've seen the lightning, which was clearly hers. I think we've also in this book already seen multiple times in Tinzik. So I think she's able to access her magic either because it's a chicken and the egg situation. Is there magic in the ground because there's dragons? Or do dragons go where there is more magic? And as we're getting closer to potentially the dragons, probably, are we finding more magic that Violet specifically can access because she has Andarna, and it opens the pathways and she is able to use all of her magic? I think that's part of it. I think they're getting closer to Andarna's family, and that's why Violet specifically is able to access her magic. Now, when Halden messed everything up and Xaden slipped and everything, and Violet felt her power even in the Isles, and then Xaden had to go back. His eyes aren't changing, so clearly he's having more struggles with being Venin and staying himself, and he's losing more of himself. So I'm surprised that she's going on these island adventures, why she's not asking about Venin and asking about how to save them or how to treat them or cure them or anything like that. I feel like that's a huge mistake, not asking these questions, but maybe it's too sensitive a question to ask. And then, of course, we have the first years that want to help. I think that was foreshadowing Auric helping, since they go to decide that Auric's going to be going instead of Holden. And I think this is an amazing change because Holden was just not helping at all. Plus, now we have our crew kind of getting even better. And then there was a question about perhaps Andarna's kind learned to live without magic. And I just don't feel like that's it. Maybe you can create wards with just one dragon. And maybe they didn't have to have all 6. Maybe that was just 1, or 7 rather. Maybe that was just one way. I just still think that there's wards or some reason why only her magic is working. And then I thought it was interesting that Violet didn't trust Mira with Xaden's truth. I think that's something that they're going to have as a growing arc together, is building that trust between one another. Because I think Mira is truly from the continent, and I think that Violet is perhaps not from the continent, or at least her heritage is not from the continent. And I'd be surprised how that wouldn't come through with Brennan and Mira and would just come through with Violet. So much to know there. Oh, and then also we had this weird moment where she was looking at her bracelet and the knotwork and everything of holding it together and the beads in her bracelet and thinking of parchment. Oh, and that sword, by the way, that I thought was really important, of course, came into the trades with King Corden and everything. So we're moving quickly through all of these because there's so much to say and so little time. Mira went to go see her grandmother without telling her. And I feel like this is huge, going into the heritage and being from the islands and everything. No one has spoken to Grandma Nyara, which is fascinating. Why haven't we spoken to Grandma Nyara? I don't even know if Violet has met Grandma Nyara. It doesn't seem like Grandma Nyara has the same hair. I feel like Mira would have mentioned that, but she said that everyone's entitled to their own secrets. And so clearly her dad's family has secrets. I do think that Papa Sorrengail is semi-immortal or has time-stopping abilities or something like that, where he was able to explore in the Isles for a really long time. I also think perhaps he either adopted Violet or there's some sort of very connected history between the people of Dune and the Venin. I feel like they should have spent a lot more time there. But I do think we're going to be visiting Grandma Nyara because Mira says you should talk to her, and there's a lot of information apparently that she would impart. I think they need to start trusting each other and talking to each other, but I do think we're going to be visiting Grandma Nyara to get some more information. And then when they went to Dune, it's clearly designed to fight dragons, and they have a similar emblem with the claw and the common origin with the shield, sword, shield, fire, water, claw, book. Sword, shield, fire, water, claw, book. That's 6. Interesting. I wonder if there's another 6 here. Maybe people only share stories of their 6, or maybe this 6 traveled. But I think even though it's actually 7, so fascinating. At what point did it become from 7 to 6? And then we saw there was a child with silver hair, not fully silver, but just the ends in silver, and it grew in that way, which is exactly the way that Violet's grew in. So is she either from Dune, or is her family from Dune, or is there a connection between the Dune and the Venin that is the reason why Violet is the way it is? And I think there's a lot about why there was something broken up between Grandma and the family and why they weren't talking to each other. Perhaps she had information that Mama Sorrengail and perhaps Papa Sorrengail did not want Violet to have. Maybe they were trying to keep her safe, keep her away from things. I feel like that's usually the way people go. And then we had this big fight, which was so much fun, that Violet ended up besting the queen of, it's Umbriel, right? Queen of Umbriel. And then Umbriel's queen calls her Amarilli. There's something about the rebellion that's actually called something else, and I think it begins with Amma something, and that's the second or third time that she's been called Amarilli, which Amarillo means yellow. Could mean something about his son or her power. And then the Umbriel wanted dragons, which reminds us of the Krovan rebellion, or Krovan uprising rather, that they wanted dragons too. So why do they want dragons? Which my guess is because they need dragons to either fight Venin, and I would imagine that might be it given how much it seems the Venin are from Umbriel, or they need the dragons for magic, because they seem to all be surprised that magic can be done there, and they think there's no magic. But there's clearly magic. It's just not more readily accessible, either because only Andarna's kind are there, or there's a ward preventing magic. And I still feel like it's a little bit of both. I don't know. But they wanted 12 eggs, 2 of each breed, because they don't know about the 7th breed, which is strange to me given how close they probably are to the 7th breed, which is probably because Andarna's kind can blend in, and maybe they can hide themselves, and maybe they don't want to be found. They seem to be a lot more secretive than the other dragons in the Vale, with how they have mirroring and they can get away. And typically, right, that would be something more of a prey. So why were they the 7th dragon? And this is what Theophany called them, the prey and the prize. So why were they hunted so badly? Maybe they have a different type of magic that is stronger than all the other magic, because maybe that's why Violet has, I think, multiple types of different magic that she can use. Maybe she can use that magic in any way. And maybe that's why they're so rare and they feel like they're used, because they have a different type of magic. And then we're going to the next one where we end up in chapter 33 is Hedotus, which is knowledge and peace. Now, Andarna doesn't like this place, and she says, my people wouldn't be here. But maybe that's a misdirection. And maybe Andarna is very different than her people, because they don't seem to care about dragons there. But Andarna's qualities seem to be very much knowledge and peace, even though she says she always wants to eat things and whatnot. And then how that whole island demolished all of the buildings and then rebuilt with intention. And what intention did they rebuild with? Because they don't seem to be very well protected. They don't have anything holding them off. Obviously, they're built with peace. So maybe that was originally built for war and they decided to be peaceful. And so maybe they rebuilt everything with peace in mind. But then we end with meeting Xaden's mom, and I can't wait to find out more here. I don't think that Fen Ryerson's the stand-up guy that people built him up to be, with leading the rebellion and all of these things. You know, I think we want to feel bad for Fen Ryerson because he was killed, and we love Xaden and all these things. But it doesn't seem like, from the way that things are building, that Fen Ryerson was actually a good person, especially if that's how he considered his marriage. But maybe that's the only part. I just am getting the feeling that maybe Fen Ryerson is not who we think he is. So I'm excited. Let's dive into the next section. I'm just going to keep going. The next section is going to be chapters 34 through 44. Let's go and find out more.
Oh my goodness. Beginning of chapter 34 starts that that Papa Sorrengail absolutely loves the knowledge and finding people that are like him who love knowledge, but the artifice is terrifying. So the misdirection caught me for a second, but clearly this place is evil. This is not Andarna's kind. I feel like this is the scribe quadrant, which also, I think that's why Mama Sorrengail didn't want her to be a scribe, because there's this underlying evil in the scribes quadrant, and I feel like that evil is here in in this place, in the knowledge. And it's weird to me that this knowledge is so connected to evil. Like, is it part of the Venin? I don't know. I just had to stop in here and say, because I could not wait to do the recap, because I was like, misdirection, got me for a second. This is why I love this book. All right, an update on 34 through 44. Okay, so much has happened. So first of all, we have the fact that they were in the nerdy island, I can't remember anything, and she basically cross poisons, and she's the poison master and plays this incredible hand. I loved that so much. That was amazing. And then they got their tails out of there and then end up finding the Irid on another island. They are peaceful and don't like and deserted the continent because of warfare and them not being in favor of that and not respecting that. And then I really loved what Andarna said, is that peace is a privilege. So I do think there was two of them who were more interested, but then Xaden came into the mix and they all left. I do think that the dragons are going to join the cause and also provide a lot more information. I think the gem that they provided was that they have to accept what has happened and decide to change. So it seems like every one of the Venin have a choice here, and they are choosing to continue. So I think that's the cure personally, but we shall see. When they get back, Queen Mariah has passed away, so that was a misdirection on my part. Queen Mariah is not evil, but I do think that Takaris is evil. And the reason that he is miraculously unaffected in his area, despite the fact that it's not protected at all, is because he is either Venin or he is in with the Venin. So I feel like that is absolutely clear. And then it's also clear that Theophany had intel that the alloy daggers were being moved. Where do we think that's coming from? I think it's coming from Atos, but I also think it's coming from, what's the head scribe name that she was going to study under? Mal? I don't know. I don't remember any names. There's too many names. But Markham, that guy. I think he might be Venin too, or at least reporting to the Venin. So, what else do we have? Oh, and Violet has told Rhee and Sawyer about Xaden. I think the key is going to be when she actually finally tells Mira, because I think that's going to unlock the communications with Grandma. So where are we going from here? At this point, we are 2/3 into the book. So we are, at this point, most authors kind of have everything laid out. So where is it going to go from there? I think we're going to have a direct confrontation with Theophany, with King Takaris, and uncovering all of this evil. I think we're going to have more to do with the dragons. They're going to come back and want to have more conversation. I don't think they're going to want to bond. And then where else do we think that the end of this book is going? Xaden, I think, is going to become that next step, whatever it's called, it begins with an A, where basically he doesn't have control. So we have so much going on, and I thought it was really interesting where Riddick was like, where is the point at which he's lost you? I feel like we might be getting there in this book. So at this point we have 2 more check-ins, one at 55 and then one at the end of the book. It's gonna for sure be such a cliffhanger. I know it is. It's like I don't even want to finish the book at this point. I do, but I don't, because she leaves them on such a cliffhanger, and I don't even know when the next book's coming out. This is why I really like to read books after they have like the entire thing together. That way I don't have to go through these things. But I will see you at chapter 55. So check in there next. And then one more thing I forgot was that the Irid were like, I can't believe what you've gifted her, which I think is just pure magic. I think that her second signet is she wants it to be. I think it's just pure magic. I think that's what she's been gifted, is that Violet has the ability to use Andarna's power however she would like. We'll see if it's true. But I think that's what it is. Wait, one more thing. We also learned Violet's dad's name. I don't remember it because, this is not working. But we also learned his name. If I could put 2 and 2 together, I am sure if I had the books, I listened to the audiobooks, so if I had the physical book, it would be so easy to, or if I had the ebooks, it would be beyond easy to just flip through and figure out which of Daxton, maybe that's it, it would be so easy to figure out which of those, like, recovered whatever are from him. There's more to that coming. Okay, now I'll see you at chapter 55, but maybe sooner, who knows. All right, I just finished chapter 48, and I have to say a few things. So first of all, Taryn at some point recently said again, we do not talk about the first rider, and I think that's because the first rider turned Venin, Nolan, who supposedly died when he was trying to bring back Brennan, right? It just feels too much that he keeps saying we do not talk about him. I feel like he went over to the dark side. And then also we saw the gifts from that island where they have all the games and trickery and everything. And I think that actually the compass that was given to her doesn't point north, but it points her to the knowledge she needs. I think all of their gifts actually serve a purpose. And also there was this stone missing from Xaden's dagger. I think we're gonna have to go find that. So much more to come. I am here with my dragons to talk about what has happened in chapters 45 through 55. This is my dragon Noble. That's Chief, Candy, Scooter, Pip, and hello buddy. And then all the go babies. So many. Cleo, Popper, Fern, Luca, Murphy. Who's that? Oh yeah. Pika. Oh well, that's Flora and Fauna. They're all back there. Flora, Fauna, Pika, Jalapenos inside. So let's talk, thank you Noble, about what happened. So holy moly, she is a dream walker, but I don't think she's just a dream walker. I think she is also an intrinsic and can wield any power ever, because remember, she would be dead if they found out she was an intrinsic, so she has to have a 3rd power minimum to be able to keep them off the scent that she's also an intrinsic. So there's no way that it ends there. There's for sure more, but I think she's a pure intrinsic, and dream walking is just one of the things that she can do. I also brings up the other Venin, who's the guy who's been in their dreams. I think he's a dream walker too, because we're seeing that Xaden has another shadow wielder that came about since he's Venin now, so it seems like there's balance in everything. And I wonder if actually Violet became a lightning wielder because the Venin have a lightning wielder. And talking about Theophany, there's so much to talk about. So first off, the fact that Theophany was there again. We know that she is Dune, and that also Violet was partially dedicated but not fully dedicated. And everybody thinks that Mr. Sorrengail did this, Papa Sorrengail did this because of Violet's weakness. But I don't think he did. I think he did it for another reason entirely, and I think we just haven't figured out why that reason is. Maybe he purposely wanted to intertwine the fates, because I think Theophany was actually the person who started her dedication and then didn't finish because she had multiple paths to choose. And I think one of those paths is being Venin or not being Venin, and which she would choose of those. So her paths are open. We know that Theophany was a priestess. I personally think that she was the priestess that was doing the dedication with Violet that stopped in the middle. I think that's part of the reason why their fates are so entwined. I'm actually thinking now that Theophany is actually trying to help her and basically be like, if you are Venin, if you do become Venin, we should be the ones to work together because I have your best interests in heart. To be determined if that's actually true. But Theophany, first of all, how did she get there? And how did Auric know that Violet should be going to Dune? Is he working with Theophany? I think that's a big question. Is he working with Theophany? Because I think Theophany would have an easy time finding her. Or is he working with the people, with the dragons? But I don't think he'd be working with the Irid. Okay, so the Irid showed up. So he fired the wards solo, by the way, without any of the riders or the other 6. So I think personally that the reason why the wards were able to be fired was not because of the original 6 or the original 7. I think it's the Irid, and I think that's why the islands don't have magic, because they put wards there so that the magic stopped there, because I think that they wanted to protect the people or keep it a secret where they are and not draw attention to where they are. And clearly all of the Dark Wielders are coming for the magic. So I'm personally of the opinion that it was only the Irid that was necessary to fire the wards. So we now have the fire the wards. We also don't have Andarna. She left, and believe me, if my horses, my dragons left, I would be heartbroken. So I completely understand what she's going through. Oh my goodness, so much. But we also, it said how Andarna is pure magic. We're going to have a lot to unveil there. I wonder how long Andarna is going to be gone. I think she's going to be gone the entire rest of the book, but I think she's going to be back in that epilogue or in the prologue of the next book. I think she's coming back sooner than multiple years, but I do think she's going to be away for a bit. So I think the Irid are going to play a huge role in the next 3 books. So I think this is a 6-book series, if I remember correctly from seeing online. So I think the Irid are going to continue to have a huge role in helping them save the war. And then, also the fact that she can influence Xaden's dream. I think that that's going to be huge. Can she walk into the dreams of others? Can she call to everybody and let them know that it's their choice to be this Venin or not, and can that win everything? Yeah, so I do sadly think that Auric is in with the Dark Wielders, potentially still one that helps his squad, still doing all the things, but at least he's in with Theophany. And why, we don't know. Or maybe he's in with Dune. I don't know. But there's more to that story. They just glanced over the fact that Auric told her to be there, and then all of a sudden there was a war there. And then they explained it away. Well, do you think there wouldn't have been a battle there if you weren't there? I don't think that's it. I think there's more to the story there. Auric may have been playing 2 sides of the game. To be determined. I can't wait to finish the book. We're going to finish it off with chapters 56 through the end of the book. What do you think, Noble? Noble, what do you think? Noble, what do you think? Yes. Jump, 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 jump. And if you want to see my version of Andarna, is this Pip, Pip, and Scooter. Hello, bud. Hi. So sassy, so little, so much energy. Oh my gosh. What do we even say? Like, we knew it was going to end on a cliffhanger? Oh my god! Holy cannoli! Holy cannoli! Xaden went full dark. We knew he was going to. They're married. They killed Theophany. Theophany was coming, well, her mother was the balance to Theophany, so all of those storms that I said were unnatural were her. Whoa. Dune is playing a real part here. Also, loved Oryx's part. Oh my gosh, that was so good. See, this is why I love this series, because I can guess a lot of things. But it just doesn't pull everything together. So, where are we going from here? Andarna's back. I didn't expect Andarna to come back so soon. She's back. Thank goodness. We love Andarna. Whoa. They're married. So clearly she's the Duchess of Tyrandor. She's going to be running Erasia. She's going to be a very big, powerful leader, leading the revolution, just like we thought. But oh my goodness. What do we even do about this? Like, when is the next book coming out? I have to say, I think this is by far my favorite book in the whole series. It left on a cliffhanger, but I feel like I know enough of where it's going. Clearly, Xaden's going to come back to the good side. We're going to have another, struggle of him being on the dark side. I think they're going to find out that there's good people on the other side. And clearly, some more from Dune. The gods are playing their parts about how one person thought she could be one. Clearly not. Clearly not, Theophany. Wow, what a good book. I need to know, what are your palate cleansers? What are you reading next? Because we need a nice, light, fluffy book after this. But this was a good one. This was by far my favorite book of, the last year. Easily. Hands down. So good. Rebecca Yarros. Hats off for that, because that was just amazing. Thank you so much for joining me for this episode. I hope you enjoyed the read along. Let me know what you think. Do you like it? Do we want more of these? What are your thoughts? I will see you in the next episode. Be sure to like, subscribe, share with friends, tag friends. Let me know in the comments of our social media posts at Laura M. DiFrancesco, at Flourish Westchester, what you'd like to see next. And we have the Wild Ambition Book Club, where we share seasonal reads on romantasy, classics, personal development, business, equestrian, all the things. So I hope you join our Wild Ambition Book Club. All the links are in the show notes to connect and follow for more. I can't wait to see you in the next episode. Cheers. Happy reading.